sweeping words presented by the League of Doom. This is me, Slow-Mo Satriani, and
of course this is me, Biggie, over here.
Today we'll be talking about the new Paradise Lost release called Plague Within. It's a landmark release. A lot of people say they've regained their form.
I tend to agree, but there are certain things I'm pretty sure we're going to disagree on with this, with thoughts on this album.
Yeah, I'm going to beat him to death with my flip-flops because Paradise Lost can do no wrong. We'll be discussing.
We'll see. And then we're discussing some of the news and things that are happening on the page. You would have noticed that we've launched the event for the 12th of December.
Yeah, Symphonia Infernus, the 3rd edition.
So for those of you that haven't seen the event and are listening to the podcast for the first time and hearing this news, it's going to happen on the 12th of December at Hectic on Hope.
Yeah, featuring a variety of all our friends that are into this kind of thing, playing all the subgenres and subsets of this thing called Doom.
We will be releasing a full-length interview of Malcolm and myself, done by Patrick, which we've mentioned before.
Patrick from Metal for Africa.
Of course.
Patrick.
And you'll be able to hear a little bit more information about the league itself and the upcoming event. But let's kick us off with discussing the matter at hand.
Yeah.
So this album, the biggest change.
Let's start with Paradise Lost, one of the Peaceful Three. I
think that's a good point. Maybe Malcolm, give us
possibly of the three bands that formed the triumvirate that not necessarily kickstarted the genre that we're dedicated this all to, but certainly the three bands that brought it to international acclaim.
Well, at least within death, doom, metal.
Yeah. Well, so Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride, Anathema. Of the three, My Dying Bride stayed closest to their roots throughout. Anathema discovered Dope and Pink Floyd, and then got really, really insanely brilliant and are now touring cathedrals, and that's awesome. And Paradise Lost, possibly the trendsetter among the lot, and most certainly the most consistently successful.
I also think that they're probably the most varied in their sound. You can hear from their first albums, they're completely basically death metal, thrash metal albums. Then they branched off into sort of, gothic
if you say
rock.
Depeche Mode.
No, I wouldn't say Depeche Mode. But I mean, they
you just did.
but they branched off into some gothic rock sort of.
Yeah, so the 1 second era, and then along came Host, and everyone who ever liked Draconian Times lost their mind, and sort of outed themselves as a true metal dickhead because they weren't allowed to look outside their own little sandbox, and no one is allowed to do anything other than what Iron Maiden does.
Be that as it may. So I think this album marks a return to the sort of
their greatest. I wouldn't say it was even a return to form, because it's not that they've ever lost form, it's just that they've rediscovered how to make incredibly heavy melodic doom goth metal.
It basically mixes the old with the new, effectively.
Also, it has to be said that a drummer makes a hell of a difference.
No, of course.
And with Adrian Erlandson sort of finding he's finally stamped his own style all over an album. Whereas the last two or three that he's been involved in, you probably find that he was a bit over, sort of like, he was probably told a little bit what to do stylistically, but it's the albums that he's been involved in have become progressively heavier just by his drum interpretations.
Well, I think that we're going to have some interesting points of discussion later on in this thing, because I've got quite a few points to discuss concerning the drums.
He's not Lee Morris, let's put it that way.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think the biggest thing about this album that makes it stand out from the recent Paradise Lost releases is the heavier guitar tone and the harsh vocals, and I think that's obviously to do with Nick
Bloodbath.
being Bloodbath and
Valenfire with Greg, yeah.
exactly, and it was inevitable that it was going to happen.
Well, the music, as we know, Gregor McIntosh writes all the music, so him and his involvement, well, his side project is Valenfire, and they've just done 2 albums. Splinters is a fucking masterpiece.
Great album. Yeah.
And so he's obviously had his passion for the grinding, really awfully heavy guitars reignited. And Nick, being the vocalist for Bloodbath, he's rediscovered his growling form, as I suppose is the best way to put it.
Although I do feel, though, as a general overall point, whilst I enjoyed the harsh vocals, I think there are certain songs where I felt that it was quite boring almost and quite predictable. It's almost as if it was, what you would almost expect somebody to do. With
You reckon
harsh
he's
vocals.
pandering?
A little bit. I also felt that he kind of held back, especially hearing what he could do or what he can do in Bloodbath or Older Paradise Lost. Kind of trying to find that balance.
I actually thought that his vocals were better on Plague Within than the Bloodbath work.
Really?
The Bloodbath was a step in the right direction. Well, not the right direction. I like his vocals regardless, but I found that up against the backdrop of music that Bloodbath was sort of presenting, he was sometimes, even with his really like deathy growls, he was slightly anemic compared to the music.
Well,
And I think that Paradise Lost presents a far more melodic, heavy version of that, which allows him to sit a bit more comfortably in the mix when he does go all heavy growly.
Well, I think it depends on what the music is doing behind him. For example, if you look at Beneath Broken Earth, which is a fucking amazing song. We'll get to that, the reveal of that song in particular.
It's a really good thing this is not being on video because I've got my pants off now.
But I mean, his vocals are perfect in the mix because the guitars are slower. They are in the background almost, and you can feel the emphasis within his voice. Whereas for what's track number 8, Flesh from Bone.
Flesh from Bone, yeah.
To me that song rubs me the wrong way almost, because whilst I appreciate the fact that they had a full-on heavier song thrown into the mix there, and it suits the album, it kind of feels weak. Where you kind of think, well, if only his voice was a little bit harsher, maybe if the guitars were had a bit of a heavier tone, the
guitars. You see, I have a problem with the way music is going these days. Because why? I'll tell you. All of them now are sponsored by Mayonnaise, and they make the most fantastic guitars on the planet. They're custom made per person, and Gregor's playing a 7-string, but therein lies the problem. He's playing a 7-string.
Yeah.
So sometimes what you hear, I mean, you got this really low register, but he's playing it kind of almost corn tricks, and the problem with that is it gets kind of flat. Like if you were playing a 7-string and you were playing it in a standard tuning with nice fucking meaty chords, that's sort of the general sound that you're getting. But sometimes I felt on this album particularly, you get that not quite a new metal tone, but it's that where it lacks character.
Yes.
The chord work lacks fullness.
No, that's also the point. I think that just you're describing better what I'm trying to say, where I wanted something heavier and with basically more balls,
more
to it,
dynamic.
really. It felt kind of like it's leaning towards something, but it's not really quite there. That image when you in your mind you think, okay, this piece needs something really heavy, really. Really
there's a difference between heavy and bass notes that only fucking dogs can hear,
Well, I think then maybe we got something to do. We got something to do about.
Look,
don't start with Funeral Doom.
The morbid, the better.
So I think
since you mentioned one particular song, and we've all decided that Beneath Broken Earth is perfect. I mean, I listened. That was the first video they released online from the album, and it bum rushed me like a fucking pulse wound.
Well, then let's talk about the pros and cons of the album.
What about the rest of the songs? I've got a huge problem with Punishment Through Time.
Oh, believe me,
but only because it sounds exactly like another one of their tracks.
Yes.
But then I also wanted to bring this up. When you write music, right? We're all in various bands, whatever. You write a riff, and you think it's fucking fantastic. And then 6 months down the line, your drummer, Chommy, from a band that you hardly see who lives in another suburb says, yeah, but it's that. And you go, oh shit. Either I'm really good because I wrote something that this other well-known person has written, but where do you come in writing your own fucking riff over?
That's my point. I think the issue... Okay, so the song what we're referring to is A Punishment Through Time, and there's a section in it which we'll play you shortly, which sounds exactly like a section in Pity the Sadness.
Yes.
Which, for me, is one of my favorite Paradise Lost songs.
One of their best, yeah.
But that makes it even worse because it comes first of all.
How could they not see that?
Exactly.
But they were probably sitting in the studio going, "Wow, this really works with the chorus riff around it or the bridge or whatever," and go, and Steve probably puts his hand up and goes, "Excuse me, but
this sounds the same."
And Greg was probably so in the zone, and they went, "You know what? Fuck it, we got like 13 albums out. Fuck it, it works with the song." It's so slightly different. We're not going to rewrite and reinvent the wheel. Maybe that's what they said.
But then
at least change the vocal melody over it.
Exactly.
It's such a carbon copy.
It's identical. So I think at this point, what we'll do is we'll just play it.
Let's get this straight. They can do no wrong. I'm being super critical because I'm being recorded now. But if you put a gun to my head, I would marry any one of them. So.
I think general consensus is that we love Paradise Lost. Everybody knows that. But
love is such a lame word.
But I think for me, after coming from such a strong start to the album in many ways, and then coming before arguably what's becoming my favorite Paradise Lost song of all time, they have this song. It just makes no sense. So I think what we'll do is we'll just play a snippet of it back to back. First, we'll play you the section from Punishment Through Time, and then we'll play the section from Pity the Sadness.
Soon ignites the depth of sorrow once disdain, a yearning dread forever slays. Sadness lives after we die. The pains of life increase outright. Contempt and sins priorities to crush good fortune destinies.
And if you were a qualified audiologist, you probably wouldn't even need to submit a report because it's as plain as the rather large nose on my face.
So I think overall we can agree that that's probably the weakest song on the album.
It's not the weakest song. If they had never released that song before, it would be one of the best songs on the album. In terms of songs. In terms of songs, it's a rip-off. That's what pisses us off.
Of their own song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a great song. If
sure, I could, but I can't look past that. I mean,
yeah. I don't know. Every song on this album has got its own merits. Let's start with No Hope in Sight, and it's a wonderful. It's an aggressive, growling romp. I love it. I mean,
it's a great way to open that.
It immediately grabs your attention and just pins it down. You feel like a fucking moth on a blackboard kind of thing.
For me, the best thing about it was the fact that it really showed you what was coming. It mixed the clean and the harsh vocals perfectly. It was like an introduction saying this is the direction in which the album is going to go.
Yeah.
And overall, I mean, generally speaking, it's doom. So the lyrical content is always going to be dark and depressing. But I mean,
Well,
it doesn't
Nick
get
Holmes.
it doesn't
He
get
does-
more bleak than No Hope in Sight.
He
as the
does. He
first-
does upbeat interviews, and you want to kill yourself. Right.
So it's, I mean,
This has probably got to do with the fact that he always wears bell bottoms, and there's no reference to stoner doom in that sentence.
no.
The next one I want to touch on is An Eternity of Lies.
I really enjoyed that song.
What I like about it is that it doesn't. They going back to incorporating female vocals.
Yes.
I'm a big fan, obviously.
Yes.
The whole Beauty and the Beast thing. They've shied away from it in the last couple of years in albums. Absolutely.
It's just because it's so done these days in
Yeah.
in
Interestingly, the girl on that song is from the band Tapping the Vein.
okay.
And they've done quite a number of tours with Paradise Lost, which is obviously they've become mates and whatever.
Yeah.
And I think her vocals suit the song very well.
Okay.
They complement each other almost as well as Nick Holmes and Live Christine on 3 a.m.,
Okay.
which was probably something that no one's actually heard in real life. But I enjoyed the song because it was a well written.
Yeah, for me the big thing that stood out was I'm a fan, as you know, of minimalist guitars, and I mean that song was
So am
was
I,
perfect.
because that's why they call me slow-mo Satriel.
and that's just not because we can't play anything else.
No. It's seriously because I can't play fast.
Yeah, I think there was for me it was a strong candidate for the second best track of the album. Actually,
Look,
song composition wise, and it has that natural groove to it. It's just I thought it was.
yeah. You mentioned Flesh and Bone earlier. It was a little your least favorite.
No. My least favorite is Punishment Through Time, but
Okay.
but Flesh from Bone is it's up there. I just didn't like it.
Yeah, okay, well, going on, Sacrifice the Flame. What I really liked about Sacrifice the Flame, it's as heavy as hell, but Nick Holmes has obviously incorporated a little bit of Sweden from the Bloodbath sessions, because every time he mentions the words Sacrifice the Flame, he goes Sacrifice the Flame. And I don't know if that's because he's northern or because he can't pronounce the. It's like hearing my dad sing. Because my dad's Afrikaans and he also struggles with the. That's what I can't listen to that song without hearing Nick Holmes go Sacrifice the Flame.
But for me, that was a skip track. It was a track that I'm going to skip over when I listen to the album
That's
again.
why you have nothing to say about it.
Exactly. I mean,
Insightful.
it's just I just enjoy it.
Okay, and now Victim of the Past and Cry Out for me have fantastically huge hooks in them.
Oh, don't get me started on
But-
Cry Out
but
solos.
Cry Out, the vocal hook is fantastic.
Okay.
I'm not so sure that I think they've missed a wee bit there somewhere in terms of where Nick and Gregor come together with making the song.
Yes.
It's almost like I've got this idea for vocals, I've got this idea for guitar, and they haven't taken the time to mesh them together. They haven't put enough effort and time into making it work. They're kind of forced it.
For me, it felt rushed. It felt like the song of the album where they knew that they wanted to end off with Return of the Sun, which is a great fucking.
Yes, I was going to end. Let's end this with Return of the Sun.
But
amazing.
but they need to have another song before it, and they had this idea and they put it through together. And
that's the
it just
throwaway
can't-
position.
Yeah,
second last
second
one on
last
the
song.
album.
That's the problem, and I
But
think
that's the thing. I mean, the chorus, the how the vocals work, fantastic. And then you got this anemic, reedy thing coming through on a 7-string mayonnaise, which is probably being recorded through a fuck ton of amps.
yeah.
Please tell me you can get a better tone than that.
No, that was my problem. Exactly my problem. Hit the nail on the head. It's another one of the skip tracks for me. It's
Just to be 100% transparent here, I don't skip Paradise Lost tracks because I'm a lifelong devotee, and Madam over here is a little bit more full of shit than I am.
well, when it comes to Paradise Lost, I hold them up to a higher standard.
I held them up to the highest standard. I just have no filter because everything they do is 100% 100% great, wonderful, and awesome.
Look, for me, to be perfectly honest, if I'm giving this album a rating out of 10,
10, 11.
I cannot not give it a 7 or an 8 out of 10 just because of Beneath Broken Earth, because it's just such a fucking amazing song. That alone would make you
Beneath
buy the
Broken
album.
Earth is so good that I can't rate this album because I'm too busy masturbating and crying at the same time.
Pretty much sums up the
that
whole album.
Fucking song comes on and you can forget about it. I'll be in the middle of my fucking vows in the wedding and I'll forget how I do goes. Right?
I definitely think that, without a shadow of a doubt, that song is going to become a staple on their tour for the rest of their lives. It's going to become another As I Die,
yeah.
or Enchantment, or whatever. It's going to be there forever.
I really hope it replaces Forever Failure,
I
Because
kinda
Forever
like
Failure is, for me, if I had to pick out one song in the entire repertoire that I thought was overutilized. I mean, I get why they use it, because it represents a certain atmosphere and mood.
Yes.
But I just, you know what? That wasn't the best song by a fucking long shot on the album that it came out on.
Look, okay, that's a discussion.
But now
for
we're
another
getting,
day.
we're getting
We got
tangential.
that's like 13 albums which we can sit here discussing, and then this podcast's going to be 2 hours long.
There's not enough gig space on your laptop.
No, exactly. So I mean, if you had to give the album a rating out of 10, in all seriousness, Malcolm, what do you?
Are you talking to me as a fan of the band or with my little reviewer hat on?
With your reviewer hat on.
Have you ever seen the movie Varsity Blues?
Vaguely can
Yeah,
remember
this
it.
bunch of misfit
Something about American football.
high school football players go to a strip club, which they're not supposed to, and their teacher ends up being the stripper.
Yeah.
And Billy Bob, the big fat motherfucker,
Yeah.
is drunk, and he says, a fucking 10! That's how I feel about this album, because tits is tits and Paradise Lost is Paradise Lost.
Okay, well, I think whilst most people will probably be laughing their asses off at that idea, I honestly am going to give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm going to beat him. If he wasn't bigger than me, I'd beat him up after this.
You know, it's just I kind of think that there were just too many cons in this album for me to give it any higher. And yes, I love Beneath Broken Earth, but which on it by itself is a fucking 20 out of 10. but the other stuff just kind of knocks me down. But I think
Right, what are we gonna close with? Because we got to outro this with a song.
Yeah, I think we've spoken about Beneath Broken Earth enough. That
Did
I
we
think
not start there?
well, why can't we end with it as well?
Well, fuck yes.
And there's so many good parts of the song, so I think we can end off on that.
All right. It's been lovely speaking to you, and I hope you enjoyed listening to us rambling about what is quite possibly snuck into my top 10 of all time in my life. Enjoy.
Excellent. Hopefully you guys are enjoying these little podcasts. There should be a few more coming out in the next couple of weeks. Look forward to seeing and meeting the rest of you guys that I don't know at the event on the 12th of December at Hectic
Yes.
and Hope.
Symphony Infernus, presented by League of Doom. Like Biggie said, on the 12th of December.
And
Very, very, very important date, but we're not going to expound on that.
look out on the Facebook page for information pertaining the prize giving that we'll be having out.
Yeah.
There's some interesting things in development, and like us and share with your friends.
I was just going to say, whatever you do not hit like or share, because we're not that type of organization. If you feel compelled, though, we might, there's t-shirts and stuff.
Alright, cheers.
Right, have a good one. We'll see you on the 12th.